In this video, we'll look at the basics of configuring steps in scenarios. Start with an existing scenario, or create a new one. Switch to Editing mode and add the Condition step, which changes an object when the condition is met. Then add the Exit step, which stops the scenario if the condition is not met. Objects in scenarios go through steps sequentially as they are executed. If a scenario stops at a dead end, the exit step is triggered automatically. Don't forget to add comments to the scenario to make it easier to read. Note that you can include HTML tags in the comments if, for example, you want to make the text bold. Okay, that's comments out of the way. So now, let's look at how to debug scenarios and test our steps. First, we need any object from any structure, because scenarios only work with objects. Note that scenarios just don't work without objects. Open the Debug panel and enter the object ID from the structure for which the scenario is intended. We see from the logs that the object went through all 3 steps sequentially, but they didn't change anything because they aren't configured yet. Debugging is available in both editing and running view modes. Currently, only the Start step works because the scenario hasn't been published yet. Let's configure a specific step, for example, the Condition step, which compares a field in an object with a value. For example, here we compare the Boolean type IsRecommended field with the value true. Press Go in the Step Test panel and it will return the result true, meaning it will follow the Yes branch of the step. There's our object, and the IsRecommended field is true. Let's try it again, this time with, say, the Poster field, and run another test. We see that the result is false and the condition follows the No branch of the step. You can also check multiple conditions simultaneously. Not just for the object, but for related objects too. Go through the author link, select the year of birth field, and set a condition. Year of birth is greater than 1900. Because we're using the AND operator, both conditions must be true at the same time. In this case, the author's birth year is less than 1900, and the result is false. But if we change the operator to OR, the result is true, because one of the conditions is true. Great! Now you know how debugging, step testing, and the condition step work. So we'll move on to the Change Object step. For convenience, let's add another field and call it the Test field, which is just a regular string, nothing special. Next, open the Change Object step and specify the field to store the result. Add the text, Hello World. Next, as usual, we copy the object's ID, check that it's empty, and test the step. Copy the object's ID and hit Go. Check the object and, yes, the field has changed. Great! Next, let's see how we can use the fields in this object. Click on Insert Field. The same drop-down menu can be opened simply by adding 2 curly brackets. Now test it. We wrote another field's value into the test field, in this case, the year the book was written. The templating tool allows us to use not only the objects fields, but fields from related objects as well. In this case, we go through the link and select the book author's last name, and add is the best to the rest of the line. Test again and look at the object. Everything looks right. Now the line "is the best" has been added to the author's name. We can change multiple fields in one step. In this case, we can change the "is recommended" field to false. But keep in mind that the order in which these changes are made with a single step is not guaranteed. For example, if you need to make 2 consecutive changes, and the second change uses the result of the first change, you'll need 2 consecutive steps to modify the object. It's not only fields in the object that you can edit, but fields in related objects too. In this case, we can save the result in the description field in the author object, which is related to the book object. Now, test and verify it. Go to the author's linked object and verify that the step was successful. The result is stored in the description field. Now let's look into what event generation means. You'll remember that a scenario can either react to a new object, to a changed object, or it can run on a schedule. Let's create a scenario that looks at authors. We'll leave the trigger list empty so that it reacts to any change in the author object. Run the scenario and edit the object without generating an event. That's the default setting. We look at the running scenario's logs and nothing happened. The object didn't go into the scenario. But if we set event generation to yes and change the object again, the correct trigger will be fired, and the changed object will go into the scenario. By default, event generation is off for all steps, so you can't accidentally start an avalanche of events and run scenarios you don't want. Okay, now that we're happy about how the edit object step works overall, let's take a closer look at how to create an expression. We're going to modify the test field and write a simple test expression. Something like hello. We can test it right there. Similarly, we need the ID of an object. It doesn't matter which. Note that this kind of expression testing doesn't change the object itself. It's only to test expressions. Now we'll add a field from the templating tool, the author's name perhaps, and we'll test the expression "Hello, Leo." But remember, we're not processing the step, just the expression. Okay, in that expression, if we turn on coding mode, it will be treated the same as a JavaScript expression. If we check it now, the interpreter will give us an error because it's an invalid JavaScript expression. If we want to get the same result, we have to work with strings, just like in JavaScript. That is, string 1 plus string 2, and we need quotes around these lines here. Whoops, we forgot to add a space. Let's test it again. We get the same result, but now as a JavaScript expression. We can use standard JavaScript functions to calculate the length of a string, for example. We write the string we want, then a dot, along with the word length. Now we see that the length of the string, Leo, is 3 characters. If we want to calculate numbers, we can do it like this. Enter the year of birth without quotes, because JavaScript will read it as a number. Now add, let's say 100, also without quotes. The result of the expression is 1928. If we turn off coding mode, we see that it really is just a line. 1828 plus 100. Let's switch back to coding mode, and just to see what happens, add some quotes. In this case, the JavaScript reads the expression by combining, not adding the 2 strings, which gives us a 7-digit number. Okay, now we know how to work with expressions, and we'll see even more detail in future videos. Note that at the highest levels, we can use regular ES5 JavaScript, special directual functions, and the Lodash and Moment.js libraries. That's it. See you again soon.